Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It is FBC Radio Live. It's Monday, May 15th, and John, the Celtics and the Lakers are one step away from meeting for the umpteenth million time in the NBA Finals. And I'm starting to get the feeling, John, that I think just fate might be taking over right now.
I hope you're right, Ian. I mean, I think it would be the most fascinating finals of all the combinations we have left. And look, Nikola Jokic has been incredible. If he wins the championship this year, he's certainly in discussion as the best player in the world. But I think everyone, neutral observers included, would love to see Lakers Celtics for what would be the 13th time in their storied history. Isn't that crazy? And again, it was dominated by Bill Russell in the 60s. And then, since it's been more of a fair fight. I think the last 5 times they met in the finals, the Lakers won 3 and the Celtics won 2. I think it'd be a great matchup because don't forget the 2 regular season games this year were great games.
Yeah.
The Celtics won both in overtime. So, the matchups would be there. Obviously, you got LeBron at 38, Anthony Davis, and Jason Tatum, who was just, incredible yesterday. The star power would be great. I'm sure Disney's rooting for that. I don't think Disney wants to see Denver, Miami. They'd love to see Celtics against the Lakers. So, let's make it happen.
Yeah, look, I mean, it would be the rubber match of the 21st century. Celtics won 1, Lakers won 1, and we haven't had it for 13 years. So, and then of course you have the LeBron factor, obviously, just being involved, but also the rivalry against the Celtics that obviously has cooled significantly since he's certainly been in LA. But we knew that, coming in early in part of his career, the Celtics were an obstacle for him. And I know a lot of LeBron fans have kind of had a little bit of amnesia when it comes to that whole part of his career. They kind of forgot the first go around, saw him walking off the court, taking off his Cavs jersey. It wasn't quite the heroic moment that, that later happened. But at the same time, there's a lot of layers to it. And I think what we saw yesterday, again, we've Jason Tatum he's a fascinating player because we saw him in 2 separate games have really just awful first halves. I mean, certainly offensively. I mean, you can make a case that in that first or that second game, he was doing a lot of things well. Not game 2, but the second game where he had that really bad first half start. He was doing things well defensively at least and whatnot. But yesterday was just a continuation of that game 6 barrage of threes. Right off the bat, he set the tone for the Celtics early, kept them in the game, and then in the third quarter just went off and was obviously part of the 28-3 run, John. 28-3. That run.
That number again.
Yeah, I love it. I love when it pops up. He was part of that run.
While Robert Kraft was sitting courtside, because we didn't get many shots of him sitting courtside, right?
I don't know if
probably 5'5" at best.
Look, he looked about 4'2" standing next to Jason Tatum after the game. I caught it on camera. I thought it was so funny. It was hilarious.
How about Joel Embiid though? I mean, because Jason Tatum's like legit 6'9", 6'10".
Yeah.
When he embraced Joel Embiid, Tatum looked like a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, Joel Embiid is
he's thicker too.
Size.
I mean, he's thicker too.
So that massive guy. Yeah.
I mean, and that might be maybe one of the reasons why towards the end of the season, maybe he falters.
True.
And look, I'm
a little tired.
What he said after, and this was one of the you're seeing some Philly fans kind of get a little, upset or kind of annoyed, and certainly some detractors of the 76ers are sitting there saying, look at Joel Embiid, because at the end of the game, he's talking about like 2 of us can't win, him and James Harden, but you can argue they were like 2 of the worst players on the court for the 76ers yesterday. I mean, they shrunk.
Yeah. Tyrese Maxey was their best player in many parts of this series. Look, the 2 of them combined for 24 points yesterday. Jason Tatum had 25 points in the first half alone, and he had 26 in the second half alone, right? Mm-hmm. So you can point fingers and say we need help, but when your 2 best players combined for 24 points, and they just lost interest in the third quarter, you just see it coming, right? When the Celtics were on that run, Philadelphia was like, just start the buses up, we're ready to get out of here.
There was one possession in particular, I can't remember specifically, but they just there was no reaction defensively, and they just lazily let. I think Jaylen Brown ended up with the easy basket, or it might have actually just been Tatum, and you could see Doc Rivers on the sideline, like kind of just throw his hands up, like, "What do you guys do?" Like, like,
Right.
come on, give me an effort here, and you could see that the like you said, that energy just literally being sucked out of them in the third quarter because they had no response. They went, what, 6.5 minutes? I think it was 6 minutes and 20 seconds without without a basket. So
yeah, and then they weren't playing defense either.
Yeah.
So you put those two things together, you get a 28-3 run.
Well, look, and I know commentators have been under fire depending on which broadcast you're listening to. Pretty much every day because we kind of see a lot of them are just kind of half-assing it through it and whatever. But they kept making a great point yesterday that like as impressive as this offensive showing was, it was the defense that was just relentless. And around the time they were talking about this, there was that possession where Al Horford looked like he was 25 years old, running across the court, like playing like the Celtics showed up and played like their season depended on it. And that was, I think, the most encouraging thing from the Celtics team, despite all the ups and downs. And you can sit here and argue and say this should have been nothing more than a 5-game series if the Celtics weren't screwing around through a couple games. But this is why they're so good, because they went and just absolutely dominated. And it wasn't just offensively. You look at the point differential, but I think their defense might have been the more dominant unit. Is that crazy to think?
No, the last two games, absolutely. Because I thought in Game 6, their offense was very wonky. They only scored 95 points, not efficient. But they were great defensively, and then they carried that over yesterday. I just wonder if people will remember that at some point in the second quarter yesterday, the 76ers led 35-26. It was a 9-point lead, and you know what happens in Game 7s at home? Sometimes the crowd will turn on you. That crowd was sensational yesterday. Remember Jaylen Brown after Game 6 saying, "We need you guys," and they responded without question. But I thought the game turned around when James Harden, who likes to flop and throw his elbows and can be herky-jerky, decided he was going to clear out Jaylen Brown and gave him a bloody nose, and that led to 2 free throws for Jaylen Brown and possession of the ball. That really woke the Celtics up. And then later in the quarter, when the 76ers bench decided to act like Mac Jones back when he was playing against, I forget what team it was, when he was grabbing Brian Burns' leg when they were playing Carolina, like, what are you doing? And then Rob Williams stayed down there to defend his teammate. That kind of felt like a bonding moment there. And then, of course, Jason Tatum kind of took over from there. Maybe it doesn't matter what happened, with Jaylen Brown getting his nose bloodied and his foot tugged on because Jason Tatum was just that good. But that really seemed to fire them up.
Well, and if you think about it, you said, okay, Game 6, their offense was wonky. And you know why? It was because Jason Tatum was quiet. And that's the incredible thing about Tatum and, why he's so great. And look, this Celtics team is great in its own right. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth. But this team goes as if Jason Tatum is on top of the game, they're not going to lose many games. And that's the incredible thing about Tatum. And that's why he's a superstar. And we're seeing that. And look, like that energy, we know how basketball worked. That energy, that goes to your teammates as well. You see him start to come out on fire. He comes out in that fourth quarter in Game 6, and what was it, 3 threes in a row? He has 17 points and or whatever it was, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, if you get this Jason Tatum, well, guess what? You got that Jason Tatum and more the entirety of Game 7. So when you look at going against Miami, Miami. The upset over Milwaukee for who knows? There's so many reasons for that. They beat the Knicks. Not sitting here saying it's not impressive, but John, it's the Knicks. Okay, good for you. The Celtics are a different monster for this team, and I think this is where they're going to really see the absence of some of their depth players come into play here, because as good as Jimmy Butler is, and he's good, no doubt about it, he is capable of going off and carrying the team to a win. I just don't think they're going to have enough to overcome the Celtics team.
The rosters are so different, the Celtics and the Heat. The Celtics have like royalty on their team. They have 3 players that were the 3rd overall pick in their respective drafts. Marcus Smart was the 6th overall pick. They're loaded with first-round picks. The only second-round pick is Malcolm Brogdon, who, by the way, was Rookie of the Year.
He was phenomenal yesterday.
Right. And he's the reigning 6th man of the year. So they just loaded with talent, like, high-end talent. You look at the Miami Heat, and Jimmy Butler was the last pick in the first round. He went through junior college, went to Marquette. He's great player. Bam Adebayo is a high draft pick, and Kyle Lowry as well. Although Kyle Lowry, I believe, is older than I am, and I just turned 16. But the rest of the roster, they have like 4 undrafted free agents. Okay, that's fine in the NFL. You never see that in basketball.
No.
It does speak to their culture, and I know that's a word that we throw around. I do think Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. So, one thing that will not happen in this series, the Miami Heat will not die. Like, I think Philadelphia has kind of doggish tendencies a little bit, like they quit. Miami's not quitting, so you're gonna have to kill them. They're gonna be like that monster in those horror movies that just won't go away.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the reality of it is Miami's and it's a nice story and everything like that, and it's impressive that they upset Milwaukee. I mean, but Milwaukee, as great as Giannis is and as all that, it wasn't. I'm not going to say it wasn't surprising, but they certainly gave them, and they've done this before. They've beaten Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. This would be a rubber match between the Celtics and the Heat, dating back to the bubble year, which is funny that we're getting the exact 4 teams that we got in the bubble, by the way, competing for the final,
absolutely,
the 2 spots in the NBA Finals. But I mean, look, I like Jimmy Butler. I do. I think his. I think his aura is, I guess, because that word has been floated around a lot, it has been overinflated a little bit. Does that make? And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I think they're just like kind of the classic overachievers. So I think the bar is really low, and not to say that he doesn't exceed the bar, but if you look at him statistically, like it's not like he's averaging 40 points a game and doing all this stuff. Like he has big moments, but for the most part, like he's just a really good player. So I think that kind of distracts people from the reality that this Heat team, they're an 8th seeded team. I mean, that's the reality of it. They're a pretty good team. They're just on paper not built to beat a team like the Celtics over the course of 7 games. But as we know, that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it strange though? Remember going into the playoffs, and I don't want to rub salt into the wound here, but we were talking about. It's never happened that the same cities had the NBA champion and the Stanley Cup champion in the same year. And, we were debating, should the Bruins and Celtics have a joint parade or should they have separate parades when they win their respective titles? And then we also talked a little bit about Denver, right? Because the Nuggets were the 1 seed in the Western Conference and the Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup champs. Well, that possibility does exist that the same city could have both the NBA and Stanley Cup champion. Who thought it was going to be the Florida Panthers and the Miami Heat, both 8 seeds? Right. I mean, that's obviously, I'm sure the networks are really thrilled with that, especially in hockey. Man, I mean, if Seattle wins tonight, Game 7, not to go off on a tangent here, your final 4 in hockey would be Carolina, Florida in the East, Vegas, and Seattle in the West. Like Turner or ESPN or whoever's carrying that thing is going to be looking for a refund. That's actually going to affect the salary cap because that's how much they're tied into the ratings of the finals. But point being, like, here's Miami, I'll call the Florida Panthers a Miami team, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're
Sunrise is close enough, right? So, and here they are, both with a chance to win the championship, which is nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy, and like, look, I give the Panthers obviously more of a chance because, like, I think the Panthers are an example of a team that I think underachieved and are obviously better than what they are. Whereas I think the Heat are just overachievers, and that's fine. That's fine. It just eventually it's going to kind of run out of steam. And I think it does against the Celtics team. So that begs the question, John. I mean, like I said at the top of the show, this just seems like fate that we're heading towards a Celtics-Lakers showdown with LeBron and this new era of Boston Celtics. I mean, we've seen him go up against Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and then conversely go up against Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett with Ray Allen, but we haven't seen this version of the young young Celtics. Excuse me, sorry, thought I was going to start coughing there. So it's
LeBron does get you choked up.
Yeah. I'm just so emotional talking about him, you know.
I get that way myself.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know that. Excuse me. Yeah, see now I can't help it. Now I'm like, if you saw me on camera right now, I'd be tearing up right now. No, but the reality of it is like this is a fascinating matchup when if you assume they're both going to be healthy and primarily Anthony Davis. As long as Anthony Davis is healthy, this is going to be one hell of a potential one hell of a NBA final. And if you're the NBA, like you said, oh my God, you're banging. That's a ratings bonanza right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, just look at the second round series, Golden State Lakers.
Yeah,
they were getting like conference finals, lower rated finals types ratings because you've got Steph Curry and LeBron James and Golden State against the Lakers. Yeah, I mean the league obviously wants this. Maybe they'll send Scott Foster to officiate every game and make sure it happens.
Yeah, if they're lucky enough, they might actually outdraw a Week 6 game between the Panthers and the Falcons if they're lucky enough.
Or the schedule release.
Yeah,
like I don't. How many people watch that? Probably more than the NBA.
Well, and like that's a crazy thing. Like honestly, no, I do think that a Celtics Lakers NBA final would do monstrous numbers, but it's all relative because those monstrous numbers. And I kind of said it jokingly. But that game, that NFL game, might actually outdraw the best game of the NBA final.
And Thursday
like,
night game on Prime.
Yeah, and look, that's it kind of just speaks to just the machine that the NFL is. This has nothing to do with trying to bring down the NBA. It's just kind of comical to think about. But no, from an NBA perspective, if you're ownership, if you're the league, you're like, please, not that Denver, Miami would be terrible because still two pretty big markets NBA wise. You know, this isn't like it's not like the Panthers in Florida. I don't know. It's I don't want to discredit their fan base because they're a pretty rabid fan base, and obviously that team's been around for almost 30 years now. So I'm not going to discredit, but Miami, I think they're obviously a bigger basketball city. So it's not. It wouldn't be a terrible NBA final, but I mean, you're talking about like the gold matchup, the gold standard matchup in the NBA. It's Celtics Lakers. You want that?
God. Like Major League Baseball would like to see Yankees Dodgers.
Yeah. Yankees Dodgers, or and look, there's this doesn't mean. And I know the conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat people out there are gearing up for well, it was rigged, it was this, it was that. No. When I say this is what they want, I don't mean that they're gonna be in cahoots. I don't think people realize what it would take to have a massive scandal of fixing games and also to have no one say anything about it. Like, I don't think people realize how impossible that is to have not one single player in the history of playing, except for wasn't there some nut job who said something like everything was fixed? It might have been an NFL player.
John Mackey. I interviewed John Mackey like 35 years ago. He's all Hall of Fame tight end. He was convinced that Super Bowl III was fixed. Yeah, and he played for the Colts. He really was.
Well,
and John Hanna also thought that the Patriots getting to the Super Bowl in 1985 was somewhat fixed. So
Well, maybe look, I can. Let's just put it this way. I can certainly, not that I believe it, I can certainly buy into something more from 1969, 1970, especially under that circumstance, because look, the reason Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame is because of the significance of that victory for the Jets in Super Bowl III and the AFL and the merger and all that stuff. It gave it credibility. So when people, and I've had this discussion recently, when people start invoking his name as to why is he in the Hall of Fame, well, that's why. And whether you like it or not, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes there's factors beyond just raw statistics that warrant Hall of Fame status, and that was one of them. So in that case, yeah, I can kind of see that. Plus, it's then, it's not now. You know what I mean? Like now you risk like someone live streaming the in cahoots meeting, the secret meeting where everyone comes together. It's like, okay, this is how it's going to happen. Well, guess what? That could be on like Instagram Live like that day or it could be like, someone, a fly on the wall in the room, trying to get all that information. So yeah, to anyone out there that thinks any of this stuff is fixed and there's this elaborate conspiracy between different parties to do this or that, it's silly. But I don't even know where I was going with this, John. I'm kind of like Frank Costanza. I lost my train of thought.
No, we're just talking about obviously that the Lakers and the Celtics.
Yeah.
This is a matchup we all want. I mean, obviously we're in the Boston market. I'm a
Except
LeBron
for Denver
guy,
and Miami.
Lakers, Celtics. Yeah, Denver and Miami. Maybe even they want it. But
yeah.
they look at it obviously again to be the 13th time, and just the story of LeBron's already faced the Celtics 7 times in the postseason, and he, like you said, he went up against Pierce and Garnett, and he lost to them twice, but then he beat them twice, and then he dominated the young kids, Tatum and Brown and that young team. He beat them a couple of times in the Eastern Conference.
But the reality that a lot of that came in the first half of his career, which
they haven't played. Well, he haven't played against the Celtics. Well, in 2018 he beat them in the Eastern Conference, but the Pierce stuff was way back.
But I mean the bulk of that comes prior to 2012. A lot of that storied history, and then you had that little bit of taste of like, truly the young kids and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, going up against the arguably dynastic-ish Cleveland Cavaliers, having gone to 4 straight NBA Finals. So
LeBron James and Jeff Green. Game 7 at TD Garden.
Oh, don't remind me. Don't remind me. But that also, it's crazy to think. Now, again, it really means nothing unless they can finally win a championship. But 5 conference championship appearances in 6 years with Jason Tatum and 3 different head coaches. Like, think about it.
Right. Like they lost yesterday, they'd be going on a 4th head coach, man.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Oh, God. I mean, who knows? Hey, look, anything's possible. We got to Game 6 of the NBA Finals last year, and the coach was gone, but obviously for different reasons than ability and success. So, it's going to be interesting. Like, I really obviously would love to see that, just because, again, it would just be a great story the entire time. And I think you're just going to get really good basketball from both. And there's so much star power in that matchup. Obviously LeBron, Anthony Davis, but even beyond Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's like, Al Horford's still seeking that first NBA title, and he's playing like a guy who realizes, his opportunities are running thin. I mean, last year was disappointing. And I think that's something that I don't think this team wants to feel again. You know what I mean? I know it's like, oh, okay, we get it. They learned how to lose. Well, I think there is something to that. You go through what you went through last year against Golden State. Early on, you thought, oh my God, we're up 2-1. We have this opportunity. We're going to hoist the NBA title. Next thing you know, you lose 3 games in a row and you're just, what the hell just happened? Well, They experienced that already, John. So I think that's very present within their subconscious. They know that happened. And I don't think that they're going to let that happen again. So we'll see.
Nope. No, it's going to weigh on them. But, one more step for each team and we'll have our dream matchup.
Exactly. I like it. So, all right. That's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow. Obviously, we'll talk more about that Lakers Denver matchup as that gets tipped off tomorrow night, and then Celtics and Heat on Wednesday. So Wednesday, right? Or is it Thursday? Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yep.
Right.
It's every day there'll be a game.
Oh, I love it. So, all right. That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. And, of course, head over to fullpresscoverage.com. And, of course, you can also check out fullpresshockey.com as the Stanley Cup finals are getting down to the nitty gritty as well. So thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon.